Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Activities for People Living at Home with Dementia. My name is Gail Snider, and I'm with Dementia Friendly Fort Worth, and we are pleased to offer this program in conjunction with the University of North Texas Health Science Center. And today, we will be recording our session so that it can be reviewed at other times, and we are doing a presentation called Cookie Conversations. So I'm actually going to be making some cookies while we talk about cooking.
Okay.
So I hope you like cooking or talking about recipes. So I was thinking about what to do today, and I have a go-to recipe that I used as a child at home. If there wasn't anything sweet in the house, my mom always had cocoa and oats, milk, and butter. And so we're making chocolate drop cookies, and I'll share the recipe with you at the end.
Okay.
I have written the recipe out here, and I'll share this. I can also share this by email. It's a real simple recipe. It doesn't require the oven. It only requires the stovetop. So first we're going to put in 2 cups of sugar, and I've already pre-measured my sugar. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the burner on to medium. And I have a gas stove. Most people probably don't have gas stoves anymore, but I have a gas stove. So I'm going to put in the sugar. And then I'm going to put in a 1/2 cup of butter. And I chop that up so it'll start to melt faster.
Is that a double boiler or just a single pot?
No, it's just a regular pan.
Okay. Okay.
Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am. I can. My mother always used the double one so she wouldn't burn the sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a pretty heavy saucepan, so I really haven't had too much trouble with that.
But she was.
And then it also go ahead and add the milk.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Gail.
Yes. That's okay. I've already pre-measured my milk, but you can also use evaporated milk for this.
Okay.
This is something you can keep in the pantry, and if you run out of milk, which isn't something that happens at my house very often because my family are milk drinkers. I'm not, but they are. And so we almost always have milk. So we're just going to let this melt, dissolve the sugar, and melt the butter. And then we're going to put in a 1/2 cup of cocoa. And this is just the regular Hershey's cocoa, unsweetened. Mix that in so it can start to blend with the butter and the milk and the sugar. So while we talk about cooking, what are some of your favorite recipes that you always go back to?
To cook? I don't cook.
What about your wife? What does she always go back to?
Well,
Favorite?
she makes a lot of Thai food. Does a lot of stir fries. I guess if she bakes, it's usually cakes or brownies, sometimes cookies.
Okay.
She's got a couple. She's got a couple that she likes. They're called. I can't remember what it is. Just a minute here. One's a blueberry and one's a cranberry. It's almost like a
scone?
No, it's
Scone?
more of a cake type of thing. It's a breakfast type of cake. I don't remember what they call them.
Muffins?
No, it's in a cake pan.
Oh, so like maybe a coffee cake type.
Yeah, coffee cake type. Yeah, but it's
Okay.
one's with cranberries and the other one's with blueberries.
That sounds pretty good.
They are very good.
Patrick,
Was that?
we just had somebody else join the session. So
Oh,
I was
yes.
just saying good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
So now I'm going to try to tilt my pan where you can see.
Okay.
Everything has almost completely dissolved. And now this just has to cook until it starts to boil. And that's the part where you have to keep stirring so it doesn't scorch. And the part where I like to taste, but it's easy to burn your tongue if you taste this.
Mhm.
So I love to cook, but my favorite thing is doing desserts. My grandmother was a wonderful baker, and she actually worked in a bakery in California for a while. And so I learned my love of baking from my grandmother. And we've made all kinds of cookies and pies and cakes and homemade bread. And I think making fancy cakes is my favorite. I like to make layer cakes like red velvet and Italian cream. And I have a chocolate devil's food cake that I make as well.
Okay. I think about the only layer cakes my wife has made when she's done a decorative cake. You know,
Okay.
special. She
For
used
the
to
kids
decorate
when they were
them.
little?
Yeah, decorate one well. She made one point in time made a hobby horse.
Oh,
without
wow.
a form. She just cut it, baked it, and then cut it and iced
Oh,
it
wow.
together. It was in Thailand, so the icing got hot and the head fell off.
That sounds a little intense.
Yeah, it was. It was, but hey, she enjoyed it. She still does a little bit, but not as much as she did. Now the girls do it for their kids,
Yeah.
grandkids. Yeah.
Well, my daughter has kind of taken after me, and she likes to make cakes. She doesn't have a lot of time, but she made her son's first birthday cake.
Yeah. My daughter with the grandkid daughters, she's just a creative person. She's always been creative, and so she's always got things going on. I made the granddaughters little rolling pins for Christmas, their size,
Oh, wow.
and so they use them and show videos of them making cookies, rolling out using a rolling
Right.
pin, things like that. So
That sounds fun. So, Patrick, what's your favorite kind of dessert?
German chocolate cake.
Chocolate cake. German chocolate cake.
German
Well,
chocolate.
you probably would like my red velvet cake then, because I use German chocolate frosting on it.
That's my second choice, red velvet.
It's red velvet Waldorf, and it has a different texture than a German chocolate cake, but I use that same frosting. A lot of people put cream cheese frosting on the red velvet cake, but my family always did it with the German chocolate frosting. This is getting really hot, and it's almost at the point to boil. And then we have to let it boil for 3 to 4 minutes. So I'll set a timer for that. And it requires that time to boil in order for the cookies to set up. So, Patrick, before you joined, I was telling Steve that I chose this recipe because when I was growing up, I come from a family of 4 girls, and if we wanted something sweet and there wasn't anything in the house, and this is boiling, so I'm going to set my timer for 4 minutes. If there was nothing else in the house, my mom always had the stuff to make these chocolate drop cookies that don't require baking, and it was a really fast snack.
That's what kids love.
So
Fast
in the
food.
recipe book, a fast food, there you go.
That's right. Yeah,
Oatmeal in it, so it's healthy, right?
that's right. It's got milk in it. It's got butter in it. It's got sugar in it. It's got chocolate in it. It's all healthy.
That's like red wine and dark chocolate. It's all heart healthy.
So this cookie is a little bit dangerous for me to make because nobody in my household likes this cookie. So if I make them, guess who has to eat them?
You either eat them or you give them away as gifts.
That's right.
Right. Yeah.
So Steve, you mentioned that your wife cooks Thai food. Do
Yeah.
they use egg rolls with any of their meals?
Not really. Thais don't use egg rolls per se. They use sometimes spring rolls, which is a little bit different.
Okay.
Thais don't really eat that much fried food.
Right.
A lot of it is stir fried. Some of it noodles, some of it with rice, a lot of vegetables. The meat is always cut in small pieces. There's no big chunks.
Right.
Part of that is because like in Thailand, if you have beef, if you have it too big, it's never going to get tender.
Right.
It's always some older animals that are butchered when they're no good in the field anymore. Okay.
Right.
So they will just cut up in very slim pieces, and then it cooks out fine.
Right.
A lot of vegetables, a lot of fruits. I think Thailand has more varieties of fruits than any other place in the world, and just very good, always good.
So what's your favorite fruit that they have over there that's not as common here?
Not common here. Well, let me think. In English, it's called a mangosteen.
Okay.
And there it's called a mangkut. Basically means royalty because it's purple. And it's kind of harder shell. You open it up, and the inside is kind of like got segments like an orange, but they're more like a grape inside.
Oh, interesting.
Very sweet, very sweet. A little sweet and sour all at the same time. Very good. Except they get your fingers purple all the time if you don't.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then they have another one that's called nak, which is called rambasteen in English. And we call them hairy eyeballs because that's what the skin has got all these little hairy things coming out of it, and you just pop it open. It's like a grape with the seed inside.
Is that the same as a kiwi?
No, different.
No?
No.
Because when you described it, it sounds a little bit like a kiwi. Okay, I'm going to move my camera so you can see the consistency of this. There we go. Sorry about that.
You're making me dizzy. Oh, I'm sorry. No, never mind, Gail.
Okay, can you see that?
Yeah. Yes.
So it's boiling really good, but not scorching because I've been standing here stirring it the whole time. So now I'm going to put my camera back. I'll try not to make you dizzy.
Oh, that's fine. I was giving you a bad time.
Okay. So now I've pre-measured my 3 cups of oats. And so we're going to stir the oats into this. And then it also calls for a teaspoon of vanilla, and I've pre-measured that. So I'm going to stir that in. And now it's just a matter of incorporating the oats into the chocolate and the sugar and the butter. So now I've got that all stirred in. Can you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now, turn my fire off. Now, can you see my workspace here?
That's good.
Okay, so now I'm going to use this cookie scooper to scoop out the cookies. And the hard part with this one is the longer it sits, the harder it gets to scoop out. So you have to kind of move a little bit quickly. But it doesn't matter the shape they turn out because they taste good either way. And they don't really spread, so you can get a lot on the same sheet. Now, the bad part about making cookies by Zoom is I can't share and let y'all taste and see how it turned out.
I know. That's yeah.
That's the worst part of
That's kind of
it.
not fair, huh?
Yep.
So, Patrick, tell us a little bit about yourself. We're glad to have you with us today.
Same position that everybody else is in. Of course, I was
Yes.
laid off. I worked for Peterbilt Trucks up in Denton, and
Okay.
we were laid off like everybody else. So here I am after several items on my to-do list getting scratched off and more items getting added on. It's just trying to find things to do,
Right.
trying to keep a low profile and stay out of trouble, but that's no fun.
What did you do for Peterbilt?
I worked in their materials department. I
Okay.
supervised the unloading the trucks of parts and
Okay.
filling in when people called in sick or whatever, driving forklifts, moving parts around to the assembly line, things like that.
Okay. I can't remember. I worked for a while at another company with a young man who went to Peterbilt as an engineer. And can't remember his name now. I'm trying to remember his name. He was about a year or so out of college by the time he left, because he came straight from college to the company I was working at, and then he left. He really he wanted to be at Peterbilt from the beginning, but the position wasn't there. So he did an intermediate job and then came.
Yeah, transportation is a cyclical position, sort of like the oil and gas industry.
Yeah.
It comes and goes, and if you've been with Peterbilt any time at all, you're going to go through a layoff. But it's kind of, you tell people you work at Peterbilt, and they say, "Yeah, how many times you been laid off?" It's kind of like working for, Lockheed.
Right. Yeah. Well, actually, my daughter works for Lockheed Martin, not Northrop Grumman right now.
Yeah.
And she was with Boeing, and they wooed her away because she had a specialty that only, I think, 3 other people in the United States had, and they needed her to complete a project.
Right.
Government contract. And so she stayed there, and now she's only been there, I think, 4 years now. And her next promotion, I think she's had about 6 promotions during that time. And her next one will be to a vice president.
Yeah. That's good.
So, she's there, And
Okay, so
all right. Okay.
I have finished scooping out the cookies onto the tray. So I'm going to move the camera again.
Do you have the sniffer option on your camera where we can snip it?
You know, I wish I did. That would be nice. So it looks like my chocolate contents should have cooked a little bit longer, because if you can see, hold the camera a little bit closer, the chocolate's running out from the oatmeal.
Yep, I see it.
So I needed to cook it a little bit longer so that would stay together, but they're still going to taste good either way.
Yeah, don't change the taste.
And then there's the other tray over here.
I don't think you'll have to throw them away.
Well, before you got on, Patrick, I was telling Steve, nobody else in my house likes this cookie.
Whoa.
So I have to eat them all myself or find somebody to give them away to.
It's a tough job, but it's got to be done, right?
Right. Well, sometimes when I get hungry for this cookie and I know I'm the only one to eat them, I'll make half of a batch instead of the whole batch.
There you go.
Because this isn't a cookie that you can really freeze or store for very long, because after several days it starts to get really hard.
Right.
But I like to eat them even when they're hot. So I usually sample before they get completely dry. But I chose this recipe because it's one of my favorites. It's quick and easy, and you almost always have everything in the house to make this cookie.
All right.
That's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll share the recipe. Patrick, have you registered for our sessions previously?
I did.
Okay. Well, I will email out the recipe. So if someone in your household would like to try making the recipe, it's simple ingredients that you almost always have in your pantry, unless you're one of those people who tries not to keep sugar in the house. So
that'll work.
Okay. So I was going to tell you, Steve, the reason why I asked you about the egg rolls is because when I was trying to decide what I was going to make today, I make homemade egg rolls.
Okay.
And I thought about making my homemade egg rolls. We do a homemade version of sweet and sour chicken.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
With fried rice, and I make homemade egg rolls, and it's one of my family's favorite meals. And it's more healthy than making cookies, but
yeah,
I decided to make cookies this morning.
Well, send us your recipe for the egg rolls anyway.
All right, I can do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we might do that for a demonstration another day. So
right.
Patrick, do you do some cooking at your house?
I'm more into Dutch oven cooking when I'm camping. There's a national and a state Dutch oven associations. There's a Lone Star Dutch Oven Association, and then there's a local. I'm in Fort Worth, and there's a local chapter that meets. You have to have a big enough place to get 20 or 30 people setting up their Dutch oven
Right.
sessions. So we meet at the Riverfront Park over in Arlington. Usually like the second week on Saturday, the second weekend, but it's been canceled since of all the pandemic stuff right now. But normally we have 20 or 30 people out there cooking something on Saturday. We used to have it down at Cedar Hill Park, but a couple of years ago, the big group thing got flooded out and they were repairing it, so we had to move. But I'm more into Dutch oven type cooking, where you have to cook with the charcoal.
Does everybody bring their own camping stove?
Right. You have a Dutch oven and you use charcoal, and everybody has a different kind of setup. It's really unique and interesting to see the designs, I guess you'd call it, of their setup. You know, some of them are real exotic, and then some of them are just sort of plain Jane.
Right.
And it's the Dutch ovens with the 3 legs on the bottom of them where you can get charcoal underneath them, charcoal on top of them. And everybody has a different formula of, you know, one charcoal does 25 degrees, and they figure out how many on the top and how many on the bottom, and some of them stack 2 and 3 of them on top of each other. And it's interesting. The recipes people cook with that stuff.
What's your favorite recipe?
My favorite recipe is some sort of a cobbler.
Okay.
It's, the kind of the dump stuff. You
Right.
dump in a can of cherries, and then you take a box of yellow or white cake mix and pour it in, and cut up a stick of butter, and then just you take a can of Dr. Pepper and just pour over it, just for the liquid. Put the coals on it and let it go for about 45 minutes or an hour.
Yeah, yeah.
Delicious.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Okay. Gail, I was going to tell you, if you want to see what I was talking about. Okay. If you want to see what I was talking about, look at Rambutan on the computer. Rambutan. R-A-M-B-U-T-A-N. That's the hairy eyeballs.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, the fruit. Okay.
You can see it's very different than kiwi because it's very, very long.
Very long. Okay.
Yeah.
So about how big is it?
It's probably, some of them are about that big, about a quarter, sometimes a little bit bigger than a quarter.
Okay. Okay.
There. And
Patrick, would you tell us the name of that Dutch oven group again?
Yes.
It's called Lone Star Dutch Oven Association.
Okay. I have a brother-in-law who likes to camp out and do things like that, and he might be interested in that.
Oh, yeah. And the local chapter here for Fort Worth is called the Prairie Dog Chapter. So if he's looking for a chapter, it's called Prairie Dog Chapter. But they have national, they call them dogs, Dutch Oven Gathering. So it's going to be, the Lone Star Dutch Oven Association's their local dog, if you hear people talking about it.
Right, okay.
But it's interesting. The last big, I guess you'd call them a convention or dog, was over in Canton, where they have the first Monday trade days or whatever.
Right.
They have all sorts of space for people to set up tents, or if you have an RV, bring an RV in there. That was the first one I had ever gone to since I got involved with this stuff. It was a couple of years ago. And I was just amazed. The dinner in the evening was sort of a potluck by everybody. They had 100 different Dutch ovens set out on tables. And people had these muffin pans that had a regular size muffin, but it had 12 of them in it. And they were using those as their plate and going through and sampling. Instead of having a flat plate and piling stuff on, they had it in separate little compartments.
Well, that sounds like a really good idea.
I had never seen that many Dutch ovens presented like a potluck in my life.
Yeah.
And it went like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday convention thing. And they had people from the two big Dutch oven companies are Camp Chef and Lodge are the two big companies, real high quality Dutch ovens. And they had people from those companies come in and do demonstrations, and they had local people doing demonstrations. You run into people who find these Dutch ovens in their grandparents' garage in the estate sale, and they're all rusty. Well, these people, there's designs of how to dip them into an acid bath and electrostatically clean the rest of them off of them and bring them out, and they look brand new, and you just re-season them and start all over, and they're good as new. Those things last 100 years.
Interesting.
So it's really interesting when you go to those things. You pick up a lot of different techniques, and of course all the vendors that come in and set up their little wares. So those kind of things are always neat to go to.
Well, I guess they have to have that on a week that's not the Canton Trade Days.
Yes, they do. So,
well, I just saw in the news yesterday that the Canton Trade Days got the authorization to open up.
Wow, I hadn't heard that, but that's good.
Yeah, I saw it in some article yesterday. So I haven't been to that in a really long time. But they do have a lot of great space to do something like what you're talking about.
Oh, yes, they do. They do. So.
Great. Well, I think we're just about out of time for today. I'm so glad you all joined us, but I'm so sorry I can't share my cookies with you.
Well, that's life in the big city.
Yeah, yeah.
Life in the big city. So y'all have a wonderful weekend. And on Monday, we meet for Ageless Grace, which is our movement program. If you haven't done that, it's a lot of fun, and it provides an opportunity to get your body moving and staying seated in a chair. And it starts at 10:30.
All righty.
Y'all have a wonderful weekend.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.